Good afternoon. My name is Allan James and I look after the Sage channel at Eureka, and we offer both products I'm about to present this afternoon to the channel. So I've called it the Battle of our Data Exchange Solutions. Okay, a short agenda. So we're going to talk about a little bit about Eureka's development team. And we're going to look at data exchange. That's the on-premise version, features and benefits. I'll do a quick demo around on-premise data exchange. Then we'll look at its new baby, cloud data exchange, and the features and benefits of that. And then a demo of cloud data exchange. Then we're going to highlight the core differences and the reasons why we would buy CDE over DX, and why data exchange over cloud data exchange, as there are scenarios for both. And we'll take a question and answer session. Okay, so for those of you who don't know, Eureka have been a Sage ISV or a Sage developer since 1996. We have a catalog of numerous add-ons that help improve the out-the-box functionality of Sage 200. And we have become, over the years, integration specialists with both data exchange and cloud data exchange. Learned a lot from data exchange, and now increasing that knowledge with dedicated integration team at Eureka. We have been awarded Developer of the Year by Sage on 5 occasions. We have more than 3,000 sites in the UK, Ireland, and further afield using our development add-ons and integration solutions. We now have over 60 staff, and the majority of the staff are in technical roles, and we do have a customer satisfaction customer share website that allows partners as well as our customers to log in and tell us what they thought of the last support call. And we got 9.7 out of 10 for that. So data exchange for Sage 200 is a product we have had in our portfolio for about 10 years. And it's grown its functionality over the years, where now we have 60 fully automated imports and exports. The way data exchange transfers data is either in a CSV or an XML file. So that's flat file transfer. So what we're seeing here, without development and out of the box, data exchange can pick a file up from a folder, from an SFTP, and from an FTP. And that file can update certain aspects of Sage 200, i.e. it can process orders. So we can pick up a sales order .csv from a folder and pull it into Sage. Not only that, we can automate the sales order. We can allocate the stock, we can dispatch it, we can generate the invoice, and we could post that invoice to the ledger. In addition, if it happens that there's a payment value in that sales order file for the sales orders within that file, we can actually post the payment to the invoice, or match the payment to the invoice. We can also import purchase orders, cashbook transactions, and many, many more that we'll see when we get to the product. Data exchange also provides a full audit log. So it will provide a full audit log of everything that's done in and out of Sage 200, and it keeps copies of posted and failed files. It can also email a user or a group to say, yes, I've done it, or no, I haven't. And the reason I have it is because the stock item doesn't exist in Sage, or the customer doesn't exist in Sage, or similar. This is quite a normal setup for data exchange, where Data Exchange is installed onto the same server as Sage 200. Generally, it doesn't have to be, but it's advised that it's installed onto the same server as Sage 200. It sort of hooks onto Sage like a limpet, and you can switch on as many plugins as you like to do the various tasks, and the scheduler within Data Exchange will process those tasks in sequence. There is no set scheduler per, oh, there is now. There is a set scheduler per plugin. So you can have orders coming in once every 4 hours and stock levels going up every once a day, that sort of idea. So we could send stock information to a third party or a website location or an FTP. If it was an FTP, the web developer would pull the file in. We can create new customers in Sage. We can process orders. We can update customers. We can also, this arrow's going the wrong way, we can also send dispatch information out from Sage to wherever. So Data Exchange can link to existing websites or third-party systems via an FTP. It can automatically email notification that it's done its thing or it hasn't, and it can be easily customized to meet any non-out-the-box requirements, i.e., if the customer has got the third party, let's say it's a warehousing system, and it's producing a file not in our format, then we can create a plugin to pick their data up in their format, or however they want that data to be picked up. We can even create a plugin that will connect to the endpoints of an API. We also have 3 API plugins for on-premise Data Exchange: eBay, Amazon, and Shopify. eBay is pretty straightforward, bringing orders into Sage. Amazon recently, where Amazon have changed or in the process of changing their API, which launches on the 31st of July. And quite happily, before the new API, we could bring orders in and dispatch those orders to the relevant address on those orders. Unfortunately, Amazon have removed the ability to put the delivery address or the go-to address of the parcel on the import or the export from Amazon in the new API. But we are working with Amazon currently to see if we can get that functionality. But dealing with Amazon is difficult. They're a huge monster, and you often get replies from machines. But we are working on being able to get that data in the new API. However, we have a fix with an AMTU integration for Data Exchange that will bring in the orders with the go-to address, and that is an XML file, not an API. And we have 2 Shopify integrations. We've got orders in to Sage from Shopify and stock out, not stock levels out, stock items out. We do not have an out-the-box stock level integration for on-premise Data Exchange and Shopify. So let's have a quick look at Data Exchange. I've got it on another. So this is Data Exchange, not the prettiest piece of software in the world, but I would suggest the most used integration software for Sage 200 in the last 10 years. So within a lot of business partners know this product very well. However, if your business partnership doesn't, we can install, set up, and implement Data Exchange for you, obviously at a cost. But generally, business partners just download it and implement it themselves. it will hook on to Sage 200 and we can test the link or the integration. There is a posted folder. So every time a file comes in to Sage, it takes a copy of that file and pops it into the folder here. And any file fails, it goes in here. So the failed file, so if we're bringing in sales orders and the file fails, it will fail the whole file. So we go to this folder, pick up the file, edit it, perhaps remove the foreign stock code or the unknown customer, whatever it is, and the error will tell us where the fault is. And then we can then put the file back into the originating folder and then run Data Exchange again. So we've also got FTP, where we pick the data up from FTP or SFTP, and email details. It can send failed only. That's where 99.9% of people have it. If it fails, send me an email. Posted, so that's unfailed or normal or both. Okay, so let's look at the brains of the outfit. Here we have our import plugins and export plugins. So we do every standard Sage import and every standard Sage export. Why use Data Exchange? Because it automates that process. But not only do we do the standard Sage import and exports, we do many more, as you can see. I'm going to just focus on just a quick one. We're not going to go into these individually, but the other plugins don't come with Data Exchange. Data Exchange is currently £2,500 plus £750 retail to the end user, and you would get your business partner discount. These additional plugins are an additional charge and an additional annual charge. So let's look at exporting data out of Sage. Each plugin has its own attributes. They all look very similar to this one, this Sales Ledger Customer Account Export, and they've all got very similar rules. So here we have, what type of file do we want to export, a CSV or an XML, where I want the file to go. Do I want it to go to an FTP? Do I want to do a full export all the time, or just do new and change records only? If I do set it for new and change records only, on the very next export, it will export everything and then untick that. And from that time, it's only changed records. Now, in recent versions of Data Exchange, we have a scheduler per plugin, and you can set it from once a minute to once a day. Within here, we have the standard Sage field names. Forget the word standard, because that's not Sage standard. This doesn't work with Sage 200 standard. However, the cloud version does. I'll come back to that. But these are all the expected field names in Sage, and they'll all be familiar to you, I would suggest. And these are within the sales ledger or the customer header, including analysis fields, spare text fields, hidden fields. But we also have what we call alias names. So we call it account number, but they might call it test one. So that when we're exporting the data, the header will be the alias name when it hits the spreadsheet or hits the CSV file. And that's very useful for people, for third parties that have specific header names that they want to use. And here you determine what fields you want to export or not, whatever the case may be. things like stock level export has a little more in it. So it's very similar. CSV or XML, where's it going? Column aliases, as you would expect here. So here we have the various names, but generally that's the field that people want. And we can do it by warehouse. You might perhaps just have it in Sunderland, which is our website. I don't know, you might just want to export the stock levels for one warehouse, or for certain warehouses. The connector allows you to do that. So as I mentioned earlier, each connector has certain attributes to help automation. And we've learned these requirements over the years and added them. So let's look at importing data into Sage. So let's look at a customer. No, let's do a customer account. So Data Exchange is quite intelligent. So it knows the rules of Sage. So it can actually create new customers based on whatever methodology that we use to create a new customer, whether it's EUR01 or EUR001, and it always sticks to the rules. So if I try to, let's say, well, if I try to go 9, it knows it's only 8 characters in the Sage header. So we could go 2 and 2. And we could put a separator in there. So when it creates the customer header or the customer code, that's the code it will create. If it sees a EU-01, it will create 02 and so on. And as we know, there are certain defaults that have to take place in Sage to allow us to process an order against a customer, or to allow us to save the customer. Default nominal, payment terms, keep transactions for, and all that sort of stuff. We'll go back here. So this is where this plugin is looking for the file, looking for the customer import file. And it's going to get it, pick it up every hour. And here are the relevant field names. And this import has aliases too. So as you can see, very comprehensive touch points all around the Sage system to import and export data. And you can see here in that purchase ledger import, some more attributes: update cash book, managing settlement discount, and so on. We also have cash book transactions and cash book purchase and sales transactions. So let's focus 1 or 2 points on Data Exchange. It's a local piece of software. It can pick up local files. So if I'm proficient with Data Exchange, like a lot of our partners are, then I have the ability to perhaps help me do a Sage 200 upgrade, perhaps add all my new customer telephone numbers, or because not only can we create new, we can update existing. So if we go to a customer account import, there's all the aliases. If we wanted to change everyone's price band or everyone's credit limit, then obviously there is some default fields that must come in, and you'll get those on the user guide. Then we can import all the credit limits, tax code, price band changes, postcode. So we can update as well as create new. And that is in most places. Obviously, we can't change things that you can't change in Sage. So we couldn't update the customer code. We can't update a stock code. We can update a stock item, but we can't change the code because it's against the rules. And really, when our plugins are all set up and we've all done our thing, we click Start, and Data Exchange goes off and does its thing. Mine's going to fail because I'm not connected to anything, I don't think. but it goes off and it runs the plugins that we have switched on. And if it fails, it tells us why it fails. And here we have a posted file. Stock item import successfully processed 7 items. Okay, so let's move on to Cloud Data Exchange. So Cloud Data Exchange was designed some 5 years ago, and it probably took about 3.5 to 4 years before we had anything to test. We knew and we learned through the 10 years or so of data exchange what people wanted, what the issues were with data exchange. A lot of business partners ask for a service. This is a service. A lot of business partners ask for security. This is secure. And it is next generational, where data exchange was focused on Sage 200 and or Sage 50. It was Sage focused, where this is not Sage focused. It is multi-plugin focused. So we had 3 objectives when we decided to build Cloud Data Exchange. 1, it had to be cloud-based, and 2, it had to be secure. So we weren't looking for a platform that would encrypt the data from connector to connector, and the Google platform was that beast. People like PayPal and Bloomberg, 2 very high security driven businesses, use the Google App Engine for their products. So we thought, good enough for them, good enough for us. Objective number 2 was for it to be platform independent. Yeah, we are a Sage business partner too, as you know. We're also a NetSuite partner. So we have connectors for Sage, for NetSuite, for Sage 50, but we also have Salesforce, a Salesforce connector, Xero, QuickBooks, and we will be adding others as we grow the product. We're just improving the product where it is today to have more and more functionality. Then we'll branch out with the product. And scalability is very important. As businesses grow, their transaction levels grow. And it was important that we we designed a solution and had a platform that could manage huge amounts of data, which we have. So we do have small businesses running Cloud Data Exchange. We're perhaps processing thousands of transactions. We have 200 clients processing in excess of 500,000 transactions a month. But as I often have said in the past in these demos, there was one client, we have a NetSuite customer who actually hit 1 million transactions a month. There is no ceiling on the amount of transactions that come through. Obviously, the more transactions they have, the more money they pay, as it's a monthly subscription for Cloud Data Exchange. The entry point for Sage 200 is 20,000 transactions a month at £200 per month. I'll explain about transactions when I get to the product. So we've now got, in a short space of time, it's probably 20 months or so, maybe 18 to 20 months, we've now got 170 live sites with about 20 to 25 in work in progress. So we're now on 200 sites, new sites, in that short space of time. And we're learning on every implementation. We have stars that we know, things like Shopify, WooCommerce, Sage 200, Sage 50, Magento, Salesforce, are our 5 stars. Our guys, and we've got a dedicated team for Cloud Data Exchange. All they do is implement this solution. And we're getting really clued up in all the anomalies around all those platforms. We're willing to try and look at anything, and we'll develop and build new connectors for platforms that we haven't got. Just that someone has to pay for it. We have 3.5 million transactions going through our system per month and growing. Let's look at Cloud Data Exchange. So this is Cloud Data Exchange, and what you see on the screen is what we call, it's an iPaaS, Integration Platform as a Service. So when your client takes on Cloud Data Exchange, they have the ability to integrate every connector that's actually available. So everything within Cloud Data Exchange, all these connectors can integrate with all these connectors. So ultimately, we could integrate Sage 50 to Sage 200. We could integrate Sage 200 to Salesforce, Sage 50 to Salesforce, NetSuite to Salesforce, eBay to Salesforce. Anything in here can connect to anything in here. When we go into the product deeper, you'll see it's a mapping process. So our connectors allow and open up the relevant API, and we don't use the Sage API for Sage 200. We have to use it for Sage 200 standard, but we use our own because unfortunately the Sage 200 API doesn't give our e-commerce customers exactly what they want. There's too many read-only fields in the Sage API, where in ours, they're all read and write. And we can tweak it quickly if we need to, where Sage, we'd have to wait for them. And I'm in my 60s now. Enough said. We also integrate with Sage Accounting, Sage 50, and others. And so if you've got a client with ePOS Now or Freshdesk or Icon or Linworks, then we could integrate Sage 200 with those products. So let's look at the terminology. So we've got dashboards, connectors, and integrations. Rather than dashboards, we have a dashboard. So this lets the user know what plan they're on, their transaction allowance per month, what transactions they've used in orange, and what's remaining. Whilst we're here, I'm just going to jump into the account settings. We also have two-factor authentication for internal security for the product, and they can set, or we assist them in setting the settings for the two-factor authentication. So a transaction, the entry point for Sage 200 is 20,000 transactions a month. What is a transaction? A transaction is an order coming from a third party, let's say. It doesn't matter how many lines are on the order. Each order is a transaction. If we were creating a customer from, say, WooCommerce or Magento in Sage, each customer created as a transaction. If we're updating stock levels, if we're updating stock levels from Sage to, say, Shopify, then each stock item that we update is a transaction. That's known as a heavyweight transaction, and the others coming in are lightweight. So if they've got 1,000 stock items and we're updating stock levels regularly, you can see how quickly the transaction allowance can be consumed. However, we only update stock levels or items that have changed. So if nothing's changed, if the widget 1 is with 10 in Sage and it's got 10 in Shopify, then that's not a transaction. It looks to see if it needs to update. If it doesn't need to update, it doesn't. So generally, if you've got 1,000 stock items in the period, they won't update all 1,000 because not all 1,000 will be sold on the website in that day. It's just generally a small percentage. So with our experience, we've noticed that 20,000 is a good starting point for Sage 200 site. Although for Sage 50, the starting point is £50 a month at 1,000 transactions. We do have Sage 200 users on up to 250,000 and 500,000 and 750,000. And you can find those at clouddataexchange.com. If you go to pricing, you can see the pricing for there. So let's look at the connectors. So the connector is the widget that hooks on to the relevant platform or one of the relevant platforms that we're integrating with. And I'm going to focus on WooCommerce. So when I click on the connector, it says, where do you want me to connect to? So I'm going to call it Big Allan's Sales. I'm going to hook onto my website. So this is obviously a demo. I'm going to hook onto the website. So when we hook onto the client's domain, we need a consumer key, a secret key, or depending if it's Magento, it could be a token, or it could be a password, or it could be something else. But the connectors are all built to connect to the relevant platforms. There's Big Allan Sales. It's a WooCommerce, so that's the connector. I would create then a connector for Sage 200, but in good old Blue Peter fashion, I already have it. I now want to create an integration. And I look for my export connector. The orders are coming from Woo. There you go, Big Allan Sales. That's the connector we created. So that will now allow me to access all the fields within all the API fields within WooCommerce. And Sage 200 Professional, I've got the connector Allan James. So what it's done here is that it's popped up 2 existing integrations. These were integrations done for someone else, and they were saved as a template. So if you're creating an integration and you want to save it as a template and use it and hook it onto another domain or another website, you can do that. I'll explain more what we're actually. Let me just edit that. That looks a bit strange. I'll tell you later on what we're planning for the business partners, sort of business partner silos, so that when you sell a cloud data exchange and you want to perhaps do the mapping and the integrations, when you log in, you'll only see your business partner customers, i.e. Pinnacle or Daytel or Innovate or whoever. You only see your own. We're actually writing that currently. Okay, so it's created 2. I'm going to just pick this one, which is a very simple integration. So here we have 4 fields and a name. On the left-hand side, you'll see the WooCommerce field names. And on the right-hand side, you'll see the Sage field names. And I can add as many mapping fields as I like. I can also add default import lines, i.e. if this was a consumer site, then all the orders might go to Woo 001 in Sage. But if it was a business, we can map the customer ID in Woo to the customer code in Sage, so that the orders come in for Bob Smith Limited, go to Bob Smith Limited's account. And we just map. So I'll keep it very, very simple because I am very simple. So I'll put the first name in Woo and we'll map it to the first name in Sage. And you map the address, code. Let's have a quick look. Address. Shipping address 1, 2. address line 1 in Sage. I think you get the idea. So you build up that. Certain things are important. The SKU on the website, the stock code on the website, must match the stock code reference in Sage. If it doesn't, we'll need to use our plus pack for the stock code aliases. But that needs a bit of dev. So if that's to happen, a little bit of development has to happen. So we always drive, if we speak to the customer before they've got the website designed, we always highlight that, please match your stock codes in both systems. Okay, so we build up the integration, we can set notifications, and so that Allan can get an email every time it does its thing. We can save it as a template and use it again. We can allow duplicates. You wouldn't want that on orders, but you might on others. We can save sent data, save failed data, and go back and get that data. We can set a schedule. A bit more sophisticated here than data exchange. We can schedule it by day and by time. So we want it to do its thing at these times, on these days, all that sort of thing. Or we can keep it simple and go incrementally and say, let's do it every 5 minutes of every day or just on a Sunday, however we want to do it. We switch the integration on, we save it, and we close. Okay, so here is our one integration. It's independent. So this could be sales orders for consumers coming off a website. A consumer site is really when the user or the customer doesn't want to keep the customer's details because they're never going to buy again. And so it's just the order comes in and it gets the delivery address of the order is the customer, and it gets picked, packed, and sent out to that customer. If it's a trade account, obviously 9 times out of 10 people pay for the goods on the internet. If the value comes in with the orders, then those values will be posted to the invoice when we post the invoice. We can do the ADIP and Cloud Data Exchange as well. We can turn the integration off. So if we're doing a Sage upgrade or similar, and then we can run it manually. So that'll override the scheduler. We can go and edit the integration, add an analysis field, maybe change something or whatever. Change the schedule, change the notifications. Not only can we do a lot of mapping, obviously, not everyone just want mappings, or do they want default fields or default processes? They also want a bit of dev. So our guys can develop and build bespoke connectors for specific clients, depending on combination of the third-party API or any requirement that the client's got. That would be scoped, quoted, as you would expect. The one that we did recently was when a customer would log in onto the website, and what our integration would do would check if the customer existed in Sage, and if they did, post their order to that sales ledger account. But if the customer didn't exist, it would create the customer in Sage and allow them to process the order into that new customer. So there's a little bits of dev here and there that we can do. So a typical Cloud Data Exchange would be orders in, maybe stock levels, maybe orders from another WooCommerce site. We also have businesses using our product who have resellers selling their products. So we've got a medical company based in Dublin who have offices in the UK, and who their partners or their customers who resell their products. I've got their websites linked to their Sage 200 stock, so that so let's say it's called Bob Smith Limited. Allan James buys from Ted Smith Limited, and he's actually placed an order with Ted, but the stock is coming from Bob Smith's warehouse. So we've got many systems like that. I think they've got about 30 different customers, all using Cloud Data Exchange, all connecting to their own system, but as well as Bob Smith's warehouse. We have a log for everything that happens. There's Big Al's sales, obviously demo. Big Al's sales, all good. And we have a field guide. And the field guide helps me when I'm doing a demo, what we do for each connector. So if I look at specifically WooCommerce, let's say. So this is focused around WooCommerce. I can import order updates. So that could be a status update from Sage. So when the goods are dispatched from Sage, we update the website. We can import customers from Sage, import stock from Sage, import orders from Sage. And this is a new one that I don't know anything about. I've seen it today for the first time, but it's a customer update import field. I don't really know. Maybe it's some stuff that they wanted to change. Oh, that looks like it's a customer login on the website. So that'd be for a business to business site. We can export customers from Woo, export products from Woo, and export orders from Woo. Let's have a look at Sage Professional. Lots, as you can imagine, gazillions of touch points. And if we click on supplier, let's say, all the field names as you recently saw in Data Exchange. There's a lot of these currently in test at the moment. This is a demo version, but there's not that many differences. So stock levels, stock code, stock name, free stock quantity, and the relevant fields within here. Analysis code, a point to note, businesses generally don't sell everything that they sell on their websites. So we use a stock analysis code and value to determine what they're selling on the web, one of the 20 in Sage. So you highlight as a web stock product or a web sold product. Okay, so the core differences between Data Exchange and Cloud Data Exchange are CDE, Cloud Data Exchange is an API-focused product. Data Exchange is a CSV/XML flat file data transfer. However, I'm going to put the cat amongst the pigeons here because we do have an API, sorry, not an API, an FTP ability within Cloud Data Exchange. So we can pick data up from an FTP, an SFTP, or an FTPSE. So we can, using the same format as Data Exchange. So we could, as long as there's no dev in existing connector, we could bring in data from an FTP. So that option is still available within Cloud Data Exchange. However, Data Exchange was developed for that reason. Cloud Data Exchange is a true cloud solution and a service. Data Exchange is a local programmed installed in the Sage server. But if you've got the skills to use Data Exchange, you can sit and import and export data to your Arts content, update stuff in Sage and all that sort of stuff that you really can't do on the cloud. Cloud Data Exchange has multiple connectors out the box. That should be API connectors out the box. Data Exchange only has 3, eBay, Amazon, and Shopify. We're not expecting any further development for these plugins as we're driving everyone towards the cloud. and it's old technology. We're not going to stop selling data exchange. Sold 2 today, believe it or not. Business partners like it. It does a job, and people know it. And it's got a long history. Cloud Data Exchange is Eureka's preferred integration solution. We have a roadmap. We have a dedicated team of developers and consultants. We have my colleague Lara, who deals with web developers and Sage 50 and Zero. And I specifically deal with Sage 200, the channel, and NetSuite. Data Exchange will keep up to date with Sage 50 and Sage 200 products, Sage releases, but no further enhancements are planned for Data Exchange. Point to note, and I'll highlight at this point, if your client has Data Exchange, but they want Cloud Data Exchange, we would implement Cloud Data Exchange if it was viable. We would let them keep Data Exchange if they wanted to do that for a reason, and only charge them for Cloud Data Exchange. Cloud Data Exchange can pick files, CSV files up from an FTP, an SFTP, and an FTPSE. If anybody knows what an FTPSE is, please let me know. But cannot pick files up from a local folder because it's in the cloud, where DX can pick data up from a local folder. That's a big plus for a lot of people. CDE is secure and has a 2-factor authentication. Data Exchange isn't, or hasn't got 2-factor authentication. For those who are knowledgeable on port opening, we have a static IP for Cloud Data Exchange. So all the client needs to do is allow requests from our IP, and we can make that IP available and allow no other. And that's as secure as ever you're going to get it. CDE is secure. CDE will add connectors to the platform. Data Exchange has no further enhancements planned. And don't get me wrong, if someone says to me, I want to buy Data Exchange and 20 grand's worth of development, we're not going to turn it away. So it's there and it's always going to be there, but ultimately we're trying to move everyone, as everyone else is, to the cloud. Cloud Data Exchange can handle much larger data transfers than Data Exchange, humongous. We've got MFG Group, a NetSuite site, Motor Fuel Group, who have 800 garages, had 1 million transactions last November. They've got lots of integrations from pumps to fuel to stock to this, that, and the other. And Cloud Data Exchange is a subscription product. Data Exchange isn't. The current price for Data Exchange is $2,500 plus $750. The price goes up on the 1st of July. A mailer went out and hopefully you all got it. Data Exchange goes up to $2,750 and $825 end user pricing from the 1st of July. I know that I've gone on a bit and I have got a bit of a sore throat now, but I think that's taken us to 14:50. So that was 50 minutes from me. Okay, hopefully that's been useful. If I can be of any further help, you know where I am. I'm Allan, ALLAN.James at eurekasolutions.co.uk. And that's it. And I thank you for your time.